Hello, everyone. It's your girl, Miracle Sins, and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with Chief Yuya. So stay tuned.
That I'm not the type of girl that goes. Yeah, it's a miracle, baby. You wishing I would have a one night affair.
Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. I am here with Chief Yuya. Am I saying Yuya? Ah,
I told you.
Yuya?
I knew you was gonna do that. As soon as we, yeah, okay.
Oh, Lord. Well, I tried, y'all. I tried. Well, we're going to let him introduce himself. Can you start off with telling us where you're from and then a little bit about yourself?
Okay, sure. Well, my name is Chief Yuya, and but you can say Yuya depending on how it hits your
Uh-huh.
chest, you know. Um, and I'm from heaven, and been doing this work for over 30 years at this point. Yeah, about 34, 33 years. Been working with the community, really digging into sort of just the whole mental resurrecting of not only melanin rich people, but just those who have been lost in their own spiritual infestations and their own cultural crazy, and insanity in that sense. Been doing this work for a long time. Many years ago, was a youth pastor, was a church musician, was a working professional musician, traveled around pretty much around the world, but I spent a lot of time on the continent of Africa hitting what I call the 5 points, north, south, east, west, and central Africa, and lived there for some time as well, and still live there part of the year. I have homes over there and land and things, and I run a ministry where we also have land and things over on that side. So I'm the what we call the chief jegna. A jegna is like a guide or someone who protects a community or would be willing to give their life for a community. So I'm the chief jegna of what we call Our New Life Global Ministries, and we do a lot of service-based stuff, but we focus on primarily again mental resurrecting, um, uh, brain reprogramming. Kind of getting back into our right minds as spiritual people, as the Most High's people, and providing unconditional service to the world. So that work in many different forms, I've been doing for a long time, from teaching martial arts to teaching music, running a lot of rites of passage programs. I've done for many, many years, inside of churches, inside of community centers and senior centers, in the woods, on campgrounds. Been doing rites of passage, working with young people and older people for a really long time at this point. So just been in the trenches doing the Most High's work that I've been purposed to do for decades at this point. Yeah, that's me.
Okay. I mean, I know they probably people gonna be like, what did he mean by that? So let's go on back to what you
Sure.
first said.
All right.
You said he is from heaven. So God, I mean,
Right.
now I'm gonna just let you go ahead and I guess explain so the people can understand.
Okay.
What
So,
that means to you?
you know, a lot of times we create this sort of affinity or connection to these artificial borders, and we start to get really confused with this idea that our creation is from the earth. But if you read in Bereshit, or as some people say, Genesis 1:1, the very first word there is Bereshit. And Bereshit, when you break it down in the Hebrew, is in the mind of the Creator, or in the mind of the Elohim. It said, "Let us make heaven and earth." So once you start understanding the creation of Yah, or the creation of the Creator, you'll understand that the creation starts in the mind of the Most High. And the mind of the Most High, or is what we call heavens, just like we have our own heavens, right? Up here is our heavens. When we're thinking about something, it's our heavens. The battle that we're going through, the crazy and the insanity that we're going through, is a fight that's going on in heaven. you know and sometimes we fall to the place where there is no light, to the darker place, our lower nature, right? And our lower nature is our earth-based nature, or our material nature. So sometimes you ask a person, where are they from? I'm from Cincinnati, I'm from Miami, I'm from Philly. That's the earth nature. I'm from the mind of the Creator. That's where I came from. So I, like anything else that exists on the planet, we need where we are from to survive. Like our bodies came from the earth, so our bodies need earth to survive. Our spirits, our souls, our minds came from the Creator. So our spirits, souls, and minds need the Creator to survive. So my first acknowledgement is always going to be, where am I from? I'm from my Father's mind. you
Mm.
know all that other stuff is an after effect, where we sometimes use to try to categorize each other, and then we lose the point, because the point is, you, Sister Miracle, are also from the Father's mind, which is the heavens. So if I'm from the heavens and you from the heavens, then we're family. So it makes sense later when Yahweh Shai would say, our Father who art in heaven. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
our Father. Oh, so we all people, because our Father. Okay, cool, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So I am from heavens. you know.
I mean, well, I'm with you. You know what I'm saying? I'm tracking with you, as they say. I mean, it doesn't sound like, oh, now, well, depending on where people are spiritually and mentally and
Sure.
whatnot. I mean, it doesn't sound that far fetched and crazy to me, right? But to
Mhm.
someone else that again aren't acknowledging God or things of that nature, then it might sound a little out there. They probably be like, oh no, we don't know about this chief here, but.
Yeah,
But
that's
either
cool.
way, I mean, that's what we're here today, to get to know you and things of that nature. And for me, thus far, I'm just what I'm receiving is you are living with the, I guess, renewed mind that the Bible talks about, yeah, and things of that nature. And so, I mean, hey, the man say he from heaven. He wants to go ahead and acknowledge, beyond the earthly realm. And I mean, ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Honestly,
Yeah.
it seems like we all need to be, I guess, more heavenly and spiritually minded and things of that nature. But I'm sure that's a whole nother topic all by itself. We still getting to know you, getting to know you.
That's the
Yeah.
important part of you. I mean, I could tell you all the places. Like I said, I lived in Africa for a long time. You could tell by my accent. Probably you can get a sense. I ain't from the South, just from by the way I talk. So you could start pinpointing things like that. But that's the journey of the body. I came out of my mama's bush. So when people say, "Where was you born?" I was born. I came out my mama's bush. So
they're
the
not
body is
they're
going to
not
go
ready
through.
for these.
Bush.
They was
Come on,
like,
that's.
I mean, it's the truth. Look, but they ain't ready for this truth today. They might not be ready for it. But I guess we might as well go ahead and get ready, y'all.
Yeah, sometimes you need some of the bitter. You need that bitter medicine. Sometimes, sometimes you got to be kicked into readiness. You got to do it scared. Sometimes we don't do things, or we don't embrace certain ideas. We scared. Some things you got to do scared.
Mm.
Yeah, if you ever went to this public swimming pool the first time you went off the diving board, because you saw the big kids do it, and you was like, man, I don't want to be left out. And you were scared, but all your friends was like, you can do it, you can do it. Come on, just get in the water, get in the water. You did it scared. and you
Mhm.
conquered that and you love that. That's the only way you conquer fear. You got to do it scared,
Mm.
you know.
Okay. Look, there you go. And look, he already teaching on today. We 5 minutes in, so I don't know how to, ain't even 10 minutes yet.
Well,
All
we
right,
flow.
well, so this ministry of yours,
Mhm.
like how did you get into ministry and things of that nature?
Sure. Yeah. I actually, at a very young age, as I started out as a musician, right?
Mhm.
So even coming just into the ecclesiastical or the church, it was basically just there was it was a big church back in a town I lived in at that time, and I had just moved there, and I was probably about 13, somewhere around there, and they were looking for a bass player for this concert, but they were paying. So I was like, a gig's a gig, So went played audition. He was like, oh yeah, definitely, So then they hired me on as one of the in-house church musicians, and what eventually happened was, for me, I'm an extremely loyal person, and um, sometimes when I was younger, that would backfire a little bit, because if you showed me some kindness, I'd be like, okay, I'm riding. Whatever. If you show me some kindness, so being in that environment and being around people who had good intentions, I'm saying, okay, everyone's reading this book, and I was a voracious reader as a child, voracious reader, um, and had already been studying the Quran, had been studying Buddhism, had been studying the Hare Krishna system, so reading a lot of the Gitas. So I was like, okay, there's a book here. It's free, you know, and everyone seems to be into it. So let me see what this is about. So started studying, and I think there was a pivotal moment, because at that point, then I started getting noticed as like one of I'd say more proficient musicians in that town at the time, and we had a very strong music culture, So I started getting called. Well, can you come play over here? Can you come play over here? So I'm meeting all these people, and one thing about being a church musician is that there's a lot of temptation, you know. And if you're not properly prepared for that, especially a young church musician, mind you, I'm a teenager at the time, you know, and if you're
Mhm.
not properly prepared, it can get confusing. So I remember one time going into Sunday school, and Deacon Connell, I'm gonna say his name, rest in peace, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man. Uh, we went to sit down. This was my first time in Sunday school. He pulls out the book, and he reads, "Thou shalt not fornicate."
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know I was," I'm like, "Okay." So at the time, I say 95% of my friends in that environment were fornicating.
Mm.
So I spoke to a close friend of mine. We're still friends to this day, and I said, Deacon Connell said, "You're not supposed to be fornicating." And that was my understanding of fornicating at that time. My understanding of what it actually means evolved, but at that time I just thought it meant sex without being married.
Mm.
So he said, "Yeah, the book." Now this particular friend, his father was the pastor of the church that I played at. So he said,
Mm.
"Yeah, it says that, but we do our thing." And that disgusted me to my core.
As it should.
Yeah, to my
But go.
core. So I was like, "What?"
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Now you really supposed to be like my guide in this. I'm new. I'm
Mm.
coming from Islam, and I'm trying to understand what this is. And you telling me it says this, but we do our thing." So that kind of like was the catalyst to me wanting to learn more, and not only learn more, be a warrior for that truth that I was
Mhm.
learning.
Mhm.
And I again, studying 4 to 6 hours. This is as a teenager, studying, and applying. And then things started to happen where I had been offered to speak once at a youth rally, and I was like, I don't speak. I've had this voice since I was about 7 years old, so it made me very shy to speak. And I ended up speaking, and people were really blessed by the experience, and So I didn't even know you talked, let alone you could speak like that, you know. So I started getting invited to do revivals all over, you know, can you speak, can you speak, can you speak it? Come to find out, I had a gift that was given to me by the creator for not only disseminating information, but breaking down complex things in a way that were very relatable. And so started doing more speaking, more speaking, more studying, more speaking, more studying. So the ministry started then, and I started learning so much at that time that I started seeing all of the fallacies in the environment,
Mm,
and sort of outgrew the environment, if you will, you know,
mm,
and ended up leaving out of the church for, well, I mean, I never went back technically,
mm,
at church in that form.
mhm,
And you know, I was being offered a lot of things in terms of, you know, I was youth pastor and like, oh, you come over here, Doc, and I'll make you assistant pastor. I'm not even 17 yet, like 17, 18, you
mm,
know, but it was a quick rise. And then I said, no, I need to really understand what this is. And, you know, that began my journey of really studying and learning and looking for the root of, you know, going to the lands where this book was written. I want to go there. And I
mm,
visited, you know, I went to Israel, went to the 5 points in Africa, you know, well, there's Ethiopians here. What's this Ethiopian thing about? Am I
mhm,
in here? You know, because
mhm,
they said I wasn't really in here like that, you know. So really getting that understanding and that learning, and that eventually evolved, you know, to doing a lot of community work, running a lot of programs, and eventually I started Anu many years later. And Anu initially began as an idea I had to sort of create this conglomerate of faith systems where, you know, I had some very good people I know who were Rastafarian, some who were devout Muslims, you know, some who were dealing with Kemetic studies and different things like that. And throughout my journeys of learning, I began to see the core acylics that many of these systems sat on, and how many of them were not saying the same thing, but many of them did have common points and threads that they connected that people were not necessarily acknowledging, you
mm,
know. And so I created this Anu, which was okay, we can come together and we can start really diving into our teachings and our understandings for those of us who are learning the Hebrew and are speaking the Hebrew and learning, you know, the even the some of the Sumerian texts and things like that, where some of these texts came from, you know, and seeing how, you know, simple conversations like, well, you know, Ishmael was Abraham's son. So we're looking at Muslims, Ishmaelites, and we're like, oh, and now that's your cousin. If you're coming from Abraham and you're coming from that system, which our system comes from, Christianity is born out of there. The you know, the Hebraic system. The Muslims also have the same father. So let's figure out if we can get along and figure out something together or not. So
mm,
I knew it was birthed out of that originally, and that didn't necessarily work. And
mm,
partly because it's a narrow road.
mm,
And I had a lot of elders. My original idea was to bring all these elders together who I knew through the years of doing community work and who respected me and I respected them. Let them tell their story, let them give the wisdom. And I have a strong background in tech. So I was like, I'll just work the camera literally in the background. I will work the camera, I'll do the websites and stuff like that, I'll do the audio editing, and y'all teach. And what ended up happening was that I started observing in my elders a lot of shenanigans and a lot of reasons why, like, there's stuff that they attempted never took off,
mm,
you know. And again, like I said, I'm a loyal person, so I never stood up and said, I'm gonna take this, give me, you know. But people began to fall off, like when it got time to really do the work,
mhm,
you know, when it was like, look, hey, let's, you know, they're having trouble at this high school up there, let's go up there. Let's talk to them. Let's create a prayer group. You know, like, yeah, it's a gang area. So what? We big and tough. Let's go. You know,
mm,
and my numbers started thinning. I said, wait a minute.
mm,
So it got to a point eventually was like, well, I'm behind the camera and in front of the camera, like I'm doing everything, you know. And I said,
Man.
well, this is what the creators like was saying to me, like, son, you got to stop hiding. You're, you know, this shyness, this shy act isn't cute anymore, you
Mm,
know. So you got to get out there. You got to tell the story. I've given you the vision, and started really just doing, you know, podcasts and doing speaking tours, and people just really started gravitating to not only the information that I was sharing in terms of part of our journey as melanin rich people and our placement in the cosmos and the relationship to the creator, you know, who uh really breaking down this concept of God, breaking down this concept of Christ, breaking down as in Christ in relationship to Yahushua, or who some would call Jesus, and that relationship of those two personalities and things like that, and even breaking down the Quran and different systems that I spent many time in, as well as what we call Isheshe in West Africa and Yoruba land. I also was initiated as a Babalawo many years ago, and I went through those systems, learning Orisha, and that's really what brought me back to the Bible when I was in Nigeria, in Igbo land. It was the first time I saw Hebrews, you know, African Hebrews,
mm,
and you know, who were observing Sabbath and everything. And I'm sitting there confused at first, you know. I'm like, wait a minute, I thought, whoa, wait. And there was no, well, we converted. It was no, we've always been this. And that brought me back. And a lot of my elders who I was studying with under that time, they were studying Kabbalah and they were studying the Hebraic systems. And that caused me to start to study the migration and the path of those who came out of Israel in Northeast Africa and later came through Egypt or ancient Kemet down through that Nile Valley into West Africa, and then were taken on the ships during the Ma'afa over here. And I started to understand now, oh, this is the Hebrew connection with us. So it brought me back into the book, you know, after so many years, and sharing that. And I've been doing that ever since. And you know, the ministry that I'm over, we, you know, we focus a lot on, again, cultural reclamation and spiritual reclamation, because your allegiance and your spirit creates your culture, you know. So our culture is a sanctified holy one based on the laws and the commandments given to us by the Most High, you know. But we also focus a lot on service, you know. I have a function, a component that I created some years ago called Red Wrap. And Red Wrap, we deliver, or sometimes we even do workshops, feminine hygiene products for women who are displaced and, you know, are shelterless.
mhm.
So that's something that we do regularly. That was always near and dear, you know. And the sisters mainly do that part. I mean, I created it and everything, and idea, but some places a man shouldn't be, you know. Even though you may have the idea, it's like that's a sacred sort of conversation between sisters, you know. So we have women in the ministry who go out and they do that, and they do workshops on hygiene and reproductive health and things like that, you know. That's just one component. So yeah, that's where it sort of evolved into, you know.
I mean, hey man, what an interesting journey, man.
Yeah,
So
it's
so
been.
many things to think and say. I don't know where I thought this conversation was gonna go. I think based on like what I was receiving about you, I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna be open, like I always am open.
Hmm.
So it's very interesting. Because well, on one hand, let's go back to young you, right?
Sure.
I'm with you. Like I said, I'm dragging with you everything you're saying, and I find it quite interesting. I think that's probably why I was like just pretty much amen corn over here, because I think I've observed some of those things since childhood too. Those questionable things, right?
Sure.
The ones that are leading and things of that nature, and it can be a stumbling block, right? It can make you question everything, right? It will, you know, not that. Of course, we already have enough questions on our own, right? Like Lord, the suffering, and why, and all these different type of things. But then when those that are quote unquote leading are, again, well, one, they're human, so we gotta remember that, right? We can't
Right.
be, uplifting people to God's space anyway. But aside from that part, there is a responsibility that leaders have. And so, yes, that's probably why you were looking at the young man and whatnot, as which we know there's the rumors about PKs and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
get it. My mom was an evangelist, and I don't think I had a rebellious, I wasn't ever like that. But at the same time, I get that whole like wanting to figure out stuff on your own and things. But that could, so it's very interesting that you were able to take the route you took versus taking the route of saying, you know what, I'll be done with that whole thing completely,
Yeah,
um
no,
and
no.
things like that. So yeah,
No,
I mean,
I was
you
fortunate.
know, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I
And
was
then even being
fortunate.
able to, doing the travels and stuff like that, which I totally, recommend. Like, I haven't, done that deep of a dive. I mean, I have been on this journey of like studying every day and things of that nature, but to actually have been able to travel or actually learn Hebrew and things of that nature. Like, I haven't felt led to do that deep of a dive yet, but I do
Yeah.
recommend it, right? Because for those that need that, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I feel like, versus, for example, looking at the Bible and saying, hey, I reject that completely or whatever case may be, and you never read it, you don't know what it's in it, or then you're like, oh well, how do we know and stuff like that? Well, if you need to go take the deep dive and go learn Hebrew and do it,
We in the
do it. You
information
know what I'm
age.
saying?
Like
You
you
know?
can't say you don't know things today. That's ridiculous. Like, and mind you, back then that wasn't the information age. So back then it was go to the library. I had a library card. I still got a library card.
Mhm.
So it was harder then. You had
Mhm.
your Vine's concordance. I had my Hebrew Greek dictionary, and I had my book. That's about it. So I
Oh,
had to
that is
figure out what I
dope.
had to figure out with those three things. Now, I
Mhm.
mean, you could watch videos, podcasts, stuff like that. So there's no excuse.
Yeah.
I think I was no, I know I was fortunate
Mhm.
because though I had some corrupt leadership around me, for one, I had my father was a man, so I never had that. I didn't have to look for modeling
Mm.
outside of my home. So I wasn't looking at anyone and saying, was that how I'm supposed to act? I knew exactly how I was supposed to act. I knew
Mm.
the stock that I came from, you
Mhm.
know. Um, and I think I was fortunate because those who were in leadership, like I said, they took a liking to me. And I had a situation which was part of the thing that gave me sort of the confirmation to exit the church environment at that time. Um, the there was a pastor, I'll say this, who I was at his church for a while, and he really took me in like a son. Gave me a lot. He used to introduce me as his son. Gave me a lot of energy, a lot of attention, and um, eventually even he even had me writing his sermons for for
Mhm.
him.
Mhm.
Which I guess you could say was an honor, but it was also because he some Sundays he didn't know what to talk about. So
Oh Lord.
you know, but it caused me to have to study more. But I
Mhm.
had another minister who we're very still close friends to this day, who started pulling me to the side more. And prolific teacher. This was the first minister I ever heard teach. Because back then, you're coming out of a Pentecostal environment, it was like you got to get them fired up. You might get about 4 minutes of teaching, and then you're going to
Mhm.
get 20 minutes of hacking. And this brother, he was the one who was like, you need to buy a Hebrew Greek dictionary. He was the
Mhm.
one like, Hebrew Greek for what? Like he started breaking things down.
Mhm.
And he started pulling me to the side. And come to find out, in a very short time, this pastor had been molesting and sleeping with some of the young brothers in the church.
Mhm.
And the minister, who, like I said, I'm still friends with to this day, he just would ask me certain questions, you know, like, yeah, does he give you lifts home sometime, but he drops everybody off first and drops you off. Like, yeah, we be talking. you
Mhm.
know, and
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
not picking up on it. He was married and children, all that. And, later I was in my 20s by then. We spoke about it. And he said, yeah. I said, how'd you know to ask me all those questions? He said, well, when I was a teenager, he did the same thing to me.
Wow.
And I know his type, but
Mm.
he actually got him. So it was
Mm.
interesting one Sunday I had came, we were speaking and I was in his office and he said, "You missed church last Sunday." I said, "No, actually I didn't. I went to another church." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I just wanted to see how other people do things so I could bring it back here." But they didn't understand that concept. So he kind of looked at me. He said, there comes a time sometimes where people outgrow the ministry. And I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "I think you've outgrown this ministry." And it was just a sober 3 minutes where the spirit of the creator leaped into him, pushed all his sick, perverted agenda out of his mind and spoke through him.
Mm-hmm.
And the Most High spoke to him and said, "Get up out of here." Because the pastor is very rare because we didn't have any problem. Everything was peaceful. We were great. I'm a musician in there. I'm preaching. And he said, "Yeah, I think you've outgrown." He's like, "The things you're talking about and doing are beyond what we're doing." And then, it was like something leaped into him and then he went back to his, to his own agenda. But that gave me the confirmation to say, yeah, let me, okay, if you're telling me that my wings have grown now and I should, I'm going to do that. And it was, like I said, it was years later that there was some things that happened. One of the young men that he was dealing with tried to commit suicide. And when he was in the hospital, then it came out that this is what was going on. This was probably less than a year after I left, and other things started coming out. And the brother told me, he was like, "Yeah, he was setting you up." And in hindsight, when I look back, I have never engaged on that side of the spectrum. I have no desire to engage on that side of the spectrum, not even a little bit. But in hindsight, looking back, I probably would have, because it's the mind game. And I became very fascinated by that because I said, man, the patience that he showed, he was working on me for years, and by time that the hooks are completely in like that, you probably just end up doing something just out of a feeling like, well, maybe I owe you, or, you've been kind to me. So, okay, and I was very fascinated by that, how that process of perverting the purity of someone can happen and the patience that's shown. And I started to really realize how dangerous that environment can be under the wrong leadership. And that, so like I said, I was fortunate because I had my angel, my good brother, like I said, to this day, who didn't even tell me why he was pulling me to the side. He didn't tell me till years later. Was like, "I guess I could tell you now." And he said, "I actually thought he had already gotten you because you were so loyal to him." I said, "That's just how I am. I didn't, but he said, "That's why I started pulling you and we started doing Bible study together." So you have those moments where, yeah, you could throw the whole book away, or you could recognize the necessity of the book and the statutes and the commandments, because this is a hospital environment. It's like my ministry. I always say it's a hospital. So don't come in here thinking you walk through the door and you're in because you've arrived. No, you came here to get better, and I'm going to make sure the environment is sanitized and healthy so that can happen. But I'm not the owner of the hospital. I'm just a trustee. Trustees inside of hospitals are actually patients. So I'm here healing too. I'm further ahead than you are, and so I'm the head, but I'm on a journey too, just like you. And if we all recognize that and can come to the space honestly, then we can do a lot more effective work. You know.
Uh, well, first, I gotta just go ahead and acknowledge and say thank you for the transparency of
For sure.
sharing those details, because I know even as a man and things of that nature, being able to share that, it you know what I mean? Like, some people are very hesitant, basically, to share
Yeah.
those type of things, and so I appreciate you doing that. And honestly, I feel like everything you shared is definitely not only just eye opening, but something where people hopefully are healing right now, right? By listening
Right.
and hearing what you're saying, because and like I said, yes, you definitely are fortunate and blessed to have that guardian angel, like, yeah, and things of that nature. And God just covering you in those situations, for you to be, where you are today, and where your mind is and things of that nature. So, um, I mean, this is one of those reasons why I used to like really try to defend GSL in the beginning,
Mhm.
or felt like I had to, or something like that, because it seemed like people didn't get it. You know what I mean? They see God, sex, and love, and they're like, ooh, And, but these are the reasons, right? This is just another confirmation to me about even me and my journey, right? And
Yeah,
this platform and everything like that, because you know, like this sex conversation, right? It's just deep. It's so deep, right? It's like leaders are dealing with this, people are dealing with it. Like, not to say that everybody's problem is centered around sex. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, when you really think about it, like, what is a lot of the major issues in life? It goes
yeah,
around this idea of, like, either you want it or whatever the case may be. Like, you get money so you can, meet another caliber of man or woman, depending on who you
right.
are, or whatever it is. Like, so sex is a big part of, I guess, our earthly issues. And so I
Sure.
feel like it's just so important for us to have these type of conversations, because, you know, um, who knows? Like, you mentioned someone that almost took their life and things of that nature, but who knows what
Yeah.
other effect or affect that gentleman had on not only ministry, but like people under him, and all the different type of things. And prayerfully he got things together, and
No,
obviously.
he died. He died of HIV, and the family lied about it. Said he had a stomach infection.
Oh,
So the Most High was tired of his crap. You know,
you don't think he got things right with the Lord before he left here? I hope he did, but
I don't know. I
you
doubt
don't
it,
know.
but I don't know
Yeah.
because it's sinister to go after little children.
It is.
And the thing about it is that when he was sick and in a wheelchair, a brother reported to me that he was trying to take a guy to a hotel. He was like, "You want to meet at the like? They don't even have a ramp. How you gonna get up in there?" So no, I
Oh
don't
Lord.
think. And again, I'm not in touch with his soul. It could have been that last millisecond, but
Mhm.
he was causing damage out here.
Yeah.
When you have young people, and we talking about the time the young man was about 15, 16.
Mm,
When you got young people coming into an environment because they're coming from broken spaces, and
mhm,
they're seeing this as a healing space and seeing other young people, and like, oh, this is vibrant and everything, and you
mhm.
sitting back scheming how you can destroy this person. Yeah, this and it's not to say it's not my job to forgive or anything like that. You got to ask me for forgiveness before I can give it to you. But
Mm,
I can say that some people come on a mission, and he was on a mission, and that's the thing. It's interesting when you speak about sex, because like for instance, I have taught on, and I do music projects around kink and BDSM and things like that, which sometimes can be confusing to people as well,
mm,
as far as like how does that fit into the narrative of who we are. Just like I can express that story of what happened and say, huh, I might have messed around and did something. Not that I'm that way, but
mhm,
you can be beguiled. There's things that we do where we twist and distort who we're supposed to be all the time. We're looking in society now today where I see a lot of guys who are coming with a lot of toxic, effeminate energy,
mm,
but they're not necessarily interested in laying with another man, but they are distorting their masculinity,
mm,
now. And they didn't wake up one day and say, hey, being a testosterone driven man is too tough, I want to act like a toxic female. No, it's a process, and you have to figure out how to reverse it. So even like when I started doing projects and doing talks around sexual alchemy and the conscious sexuality and conscious kink, and really having those talks, is because of like one of the things you said. Like sometimes people, like, we come into holiness and we're using the modeling of people who don't know or people who are sick as to what we can do or not do,
mm,
even sexually,
mhm,
you know And it's like, you can't show me in the book, you can't show me that I'm violating the law, but it's like, yeah, but you shouldn't do that. And some of those things, they create this thing where I lose my expression. When you look in the beginning of the book, like your podcast, God, Sex, Love,
Mm-hmm.
that's Genesis. In the beginning, Elohim, or God, as it says in the English Bible,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then Adoma, or Adam, knew Hawa, or Eve in English.
Mm-hmm.
Adam knew Eve. Now,
Mm-hmm.
knew, when you look at that word in the Hebrew, it means, it's yada. Yada means to know, right? So there's a mental knowing. So we knew that the expression of studying this, and Eve was what? Eve was his dark side. She came out of his sleep. She came from the dark recesses of his mind. So I need to know what was, but you made her from while I was asleep. So you made her out of my subconscious. I need to know what's underneath what I really be thinking, and then over what happens, the love means to connect, is the cleaving.
Mm-hmm.
So God, sex, love is the actual holy process. So like you said, to have to defend that, you're defending that from people who were too lazy to put the scholarship in,
Mm-hmm.
because someone else said, well, no, this is how you're supposed to move. Or like when I say, well, yeah, I teach on kink. I've released 2 music projects where the songs are just about kink but I'm not speaking about going out and being with some random woman. I'm talking about experiences with my wife,
Mm-hmm.
or in my case, my wives,
Mm-hmm.
because I practice our traditional form of marriage. I have
Mm-hmm.
more than one woman, right? So, I'm taking this is what I do with my ishas, or wife, as ishas is the Hebrew, so I'm not doing anything that's violating any law, but your lack of understanding creates these rigid things. There was an apostle I knew many years ago, great, beautiful brother. And I remember he was telling me about when he was a child, when he was young, coming up in church, they weren't allowed to play with marbles. And I was like, you can't play with marbles. And he was like, yeah, man, because at the time church I was at, we weren't allowed to go to the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And around this time, Babyface was out. And, he had these songs, and I was like, well, the songs aren't bad. I said, we're not supposed to listen to them, but he's not really saying, he was really saying some sick stuff. Now that, I'm older and I listen, it's like you centering your whole world around a woman. That's demonic.
Mm-hmm.
Your world should be centered around the creator. But nonetheless, so we're having a conversation, and he says, well, because the Bible, they used to teach us that the Bible says marble not. Yeah, you heard it. You heard it here first on the
Man,
GSL and in the GSL podcast. You heard it here first.
look, you ain't tell me you was a comedian too, and you're like, look, hold on.
Listen. I looked at him because I used to work in a barbershop. I used to cut hair, and I'm a teenager. And like you just heard the sound of the clippers buzzing. I was like, what? He said, yeah, because the Bible says marble not. And he knew at that point. He was like, and I was like, you serious? He said, man. He said they didn't know how to read like that back then. So he said we wasn't allowed to play with marbles when I was a kid. You see, so.
But unfortunately, this is the reality of a lot of people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
My mom, and no offense to my mom, I love my mama. Again, she's
Mm-hmm.
love her,
I get it.
grateful. She raised me to, me and my sister. We only could wear dresses. I think even when she was coming up, it was obviously more than she put on us
For
with what
sure,
she went
probably.
through to this day. I mean, she's kind of, when she talks about her past and stuff, like it's still, I can still hear the hurt of
Yeah.
some of the situations. I don't know, this is her testimony to tell. But I'll just say this part, like I guess whatever ministry she was under, like put a bad taste in her mouth about college, you know what I mean, and things of that nature. But then their kids went on to college, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so now my mom's, feeling as if, where would her life be and things of that nature. And so we can't blame, right, people, right, but at the same time, again, that's what we were talking about a second ago about this leadership thing. Yeah, my issue, and here, this is something I've been thinking about, and I feel like you've been touching on it a little bit as well. Like, why do we feel the need to add to You call the book, I call the Bible. I mean, I'm assuming we're talking about the same book, but I mean, maybe I shouldn't make assumptions. But either
Uh,
way,
yeah, I'm
but
speaking
why do
about,
we
but
feel?
I read more than, I mean, I read the Apocrypha as well.
Mm,
So, you know, the Bible was a collection of some of the books, the Helios Biblios as we know it today. But
mm,
we talking around the same core, you know, but I also read the other books that are in the
mm,
Apocrypha as well. I also
gotcha.
read the Book of Mormons as well. That's a book that's really our book that was hijacked by another group
Mm.
of people. So yeah,
Well, but what I'm saying is like, why do we feel like we need to add? Like, it's so much in it by itself. You know what I mean? That I feel like again, there's all these extra rules, and things like the marble or don't go to college or whatever else. That it's like, why can't we just do the main two what Jesus said? Like he said, love God and love others. Like, you know what I mean? Like, can we focus on them too? Like, why we got to sit here and be adding on and telling people that they can't do or can't have or whatever when God don't even say that. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's focus on what it
yeah,
actually do say. You know what I mean? And
right.
but see, this is why I've always saying, hey, it's good to read it for yourself, things of that nature. Now again, if you're strong enough, like I guess, like I don't want to call you brother because I don't want to lower you down. I don't know if
What do
Chief
you
is
mean
brother,
lower me
whatever.
down?
I
But
don't
no,
know. Like I don't want you to be like you didn't call me Chief. So like,
no, I'm not into all that, brother. That's a title of honor. You call me a brother, that means I gotta serve you like a brother.
oh well, yeah.
So
Hey,
that's a
like,
title of honor. I can't be driving down the street, so you got to fly. I mean, I wouldn't leave you in no flat tire anyway, but you know, I gotta go handle it. Yeah, no, brother is a that's a title of honor. Yeah,
well, bro, well, what I was gonna say is like if you don't have that type of obviously, I guess, strength or whatever the case may be to be able to tap into reading other things and then coming back to truth or whatever the case may be, then cool. Now, if you know you ain't strong enough X, Y, and Z, then maybe you might need to just stick to the Bible for a while, whatever the case may be, and get that down. But either way, I guess what I'm wondering right now, and if you have some words of wisdom, feel free.
sure.
Um, why do we feel like we need to add to it? Um, Obviously, I think we both, again, we've already shared examples of what that looks like and stuff. And um, I don't know, just this again, this thing about the importance of just focusing on what is versus like what we want to
Yeah, you know,
like.
I think there's several reasons why that happens. One, we have to understand the ongoing and ancient war between the Creator and Satan.
That's right.
And Satan's job is to take everything that the Creator has provided and turn it upside down, because Satan's kingdom is the opposite, you know, of the Most High's kingdom, right? So
Mhm.
some of those ads that we put in are very subtle, you know, but they're meant to reverse what the Creator has already established. Something as
Mhm.
simple as a marriage license. When the
Mhm.
Most High already ordained marriage, be
Mhm.
fruitful, well, the word wasn't multiply, actually, it was rabbah. Be
Mhm.
fruitful and rabbah, which means to master, you know. But to have children and for us to get together, the Most High said it's not good for man to be alone. Let's make a help me. Done. So I don't need to now go somewhere and say, "Hey, can she be my helpmeet?" Because as soon as I do that, I'm disrespecting and disregarding that my father already gave me permission to get to be with a woman and for her to be with me, you know. And
Mhm.
he said he needs a suitable mate. What suits me? You could look at the anatomy of my anatomy and anatomy of my woman, and we kind of fit together like a key, if you will, without being too vulgar,
Okay.
right? So
Mhm.
I know what's suitable. It's not suitable for me to be with a lamb or a goat or a dog or what, right? You know, as so,
Mhm.
but Satan will say, you could be with a dog, you could marry your cat, you can even do certain things with, you know. So
Yes.
that's part of it. The add-on is flipping the Most High's kingdom, you know, doing everything the opposite.
Mhm.
And I also think part of it is that Luciferian egoic mind, you know,
Mhm.
where Lucifer says, I will, I
Mhm.
will, I will,
Mhm.
and then I will even soar above you, right?
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
Most High gives you something, and Instead of you saying, let your will, not my will, be done.
Mm-hmm.
You want to project your own will. I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave my. Yeah, I know you gave me a book, but I'm going to leave my own mark. Even if it just means I'm gonna twist something a little bit. I want people to be able to say 100 years from now, Chief Yuya started this and said this.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the Luciferian mindset where I wanna ascend over the throne of the Most High, and not realizing that, like, when Yahushua came or the Christ came, he said, I didn't come to do away with any laws. I come to fulfill them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm showing you that before you can even connect to the greatness of the Creator, the foundations of the laws, and you are living within a system that is like you said, adding on, is telling you to do everything but the law. And
Mm-hmm.
and by doing that, you never actually explode out into what you are. So you live your entire life with this tiny spirit, this humongous body, and this tiny little spirit. So now when someone says to you, you're immediately offended, you're full of ego, you're full of pride, full of arrogance, because you're just full of flesh, because you have never really, like you said, just do what builds the spirit at the foundational level. So I would say there's multiple reasons why people add on. And the thing about it is that if you're not walking, right? Walking in the spirit doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It means I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm just trying. So once you start walking in the spirit, then now things become more clear. You can understand things a little bit more. So you can see the add-ins. You can see when you look at the Council of Nicaea, there were several councils of Nicaea where these Catholic archbishops came together, and they took these testaments in these books, and they assembled what we know today as the Bible, right? So okay, so we know that was wrong. We already know that. So when we look at a Bible, we already know this was a magazine y'all put together. So I have to be able to read and look at it with the illumination of the Ruach HaKodesh, or what we say, the Holy Spirit. If I don't have the illumination of the Holy Spirit, you're gonna have me doing all kind of weird stuff. Like Christmas and stuff. Like, these were celebrations to Nimrod. These are pagan Easter, which was Easter was a celebration of the pagan entity Astarte. And Astarte, they used to bring babies to Astarte and sacrifice them on the altar. You have me doing all kind of weird stuff because I'm not reading with the illumination of the Spirit. I'm reading it like from an academic level. So once you're reading it like it's a book of good advice, then it's very easy to add your own advice into it, as opposed to understanding that these scriptures are a historical book of the soul. It's telling you your soul's journey from darkness to redemption, from Abraham to Christ. This where it started. You were good, fell, and then you rose back up, right? So I would say, the adding on, it comes from different things, but definitely in this society, we're surrounded by Babylon. And Babylon says whatever the Most High says is right, do the opposite, so that way the Most High won't even recognize you. If I have a child and I say, hey, I'm gonna leave this plot of land for my child. You hold it down for 30 years. I'll be back. I gotta go travel far away. But I'm gonna leave you the instructions and the legacy of our family, so you know how we do things. And when I come back, there may be other developments all in this area, but I'm going to know you by the culture of our family that you kept. So you got Satan hearing the conversation, like, soon as he hit that gate, and get up out of here, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to pervert this person's child. So when he come back, he don't even recognize him. He can't even bestow upon him the gifts of his birthright, because he's not even acting in a way so that he can receive them. It's like, when you got a child, you buy that child some treats and they acting up, and you like, when you act right, you'll get this. But I already have it for you. I don't even got to go get it. I have it. But I can't give it to you as long as you're behaving that way. You see, so that's a part of the add-ons too. Like you said, okay, you can't wear skirts. I mean, you can't wear pants. I get it. The scriptures say that a woman should not wear garments pertaining to a man should not wear garments pertaining to a woman. Yeah, I'm with that. Absolutely. But let's look at our culture.
Mm-hmm.
In our culture, as melanin rich people, what did men wear? Because we know when they came out of Israel, when they came out of Mitzrayim, which is Egypt in the Bible, the men and women melted down earrings to make the golden calf.
Mm.
So they both had on earrings and bangles and all that stuff like that. Right? Now, we might look at that today and say, well, earrings, I know when I grew up, if you put it in the right ear, that meant something different from left ear. But we might look at that and say, well, that's women's stuff. Well, not in our ancient culture. In our ancient culture, men didn't always wear what we know today to be as pants.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So again, it's the study and it's the context. Now, I am an advocate, and within our ministry and our system, I do advocate that women do not wear pants. But the primary reason is because we have been driven so far out of our natural gender, our natural masculinity, our natural femininity, that sometimes you got to go extreme just to get back to center. Because another thing within our ministry is I advocate that men do not wear their hair past their shoulders. You know, some brothers like to grow locks. I'm a trained fighter. You know, you got long hair, I'm grabbing your hair, you're going to be in a lot of pain. If you're a warrior and you're out here protecting your family and protecting your community, then you should wear clothes and wear attire for the job that was assigned to you.
Mm.
You know, so, I mean, I'm a big man, so I ain't going to wear them anyway, but you're never going to see me in skinny, not that it would look right, but you ain't going to see me in those skinny. I mean, nobody really want to see, I don't want to see me in skinny jeans, and you don't either. But I'm not going to wear anything like that because I can't kick. I can't hit you with a knee. I can't run in skinny jeans. So that's attire that would limit my role and responsibility as a man if I dressed in that way. So now let's look at what might limit the role and responsibility of a woman, possibly wearing, for instance, high heels. Wearing high heels over an excessive time, it tilts the womb. And when it tilts the womb, it affects egg quality. Now, if you're a woman who says, well, part of my purpose here is to bring forth youth, then maybe I want to wear attire and do things that are healthy for my reproductive health based on my culture. You know, so it's some things we implemented, and I get it, but some things we had to really study a little bit more to understand what was being said, because we dismiss a lot of things. Like you talk about the sex part. We talk about even, we told masturbation is a sin. That's not in the book. It's not a sin. Right now, sometimes they cite the story of Onan where he was laying with his brother's wife. His brother had died. And back then there was the law that if your brother passed and he left no heirs, that you had to lay with his wife so she could remain within the family and have the family. She could still be a part of the family inheritance and not just be out there. But he laid with her, but didn't want to have a child with her. So it says he spilled his seed on the earth. So people take that part and say, well, you shouldn't spill your seed on the earth. But did you understand what was happening? See, you got to understand the culture. It wasn't that he spilled his seed on the earth. It was that he didn't fulfill his right, his obligation to this woman as him being the surviving brother. But people say, well, masturbate, I don't think it's right. It right. But it doesn't say it's not right. You're not going to find that anywhere in the book. You know, so yeah, there's a culture of aggressive ignorance. And some people are very comfortable with it because, like, if I speak to you, Sister Miracle, and you say, well, you know, I like to massage my man's shoulders. And your pastor, you know, let's say if you got a female pastor who doesn't have a man, she might say, well, you shouldn't be massaging your husband's shoulders because, you know, that leads to lust and this and that. She might just say something crazy like that, you know, and you'll fall underneath that without even knowing, like, no, this is someone, because you can't do it or because you don't feel it. I'm not supposed to feel it, and I'm not supposed to. What does the book say? You know, so sometimes we forget, especially as melanin rich people, that we're coming under, unfortunately, in many instances, a colonialistic mindset. We've been colonized. and our ways and our culture has been colonized and perverted and stolen. So
Mm,
we should also probably presume that our ways of relating to each other have also been colonized. What we call each other, how we look at each other, what we wear, of course, how we love each other, how we sex each other, how we marry each other. All of those things have been taken away from our original spiritual culture so that we could be good servants and good slaves for other people. So when we
mm,
start going through that redemption and freeing path, mental freeing path, then we start to say, well, how do we relate to each other? How did we relate to our sexuality in a healthy way that we were able to build kingdoms?
mm,
You know, and if it's not in the book, why are you adding it? Why did you put that there? You got to explain it to me. And if it boils down to your feelings or your opinions, I don't have to do that because you may not understand why I do what I do. Or you may say, well, I do wear pants. Now, like, I don't advocate the wearing of tight clothing for a woman. I mean, you got yeast infections, all kind of stuff that comes from that. But also recognizing that for some of us, we are still behind enemy lines. So um, I don't go outside wearing flip flops. you
mhm,
know, uh, if I'm in my yard or something, sure. But I don't. I understand that I am still behind enemy lines, and
mm,
different things can happen. And if I'm walking with my family, I have a job I have to be able to protect them, and I can't do that in flip flops. you know. So things like that. But we got to be aware of where these things come from. Do they have a scriptural root, or again, are they based on your very limited perception of how we're supposed to relate? And if we are talking about leadership, has your leadership been free, or
mm,
is your leadership an agent of colonialism?
mm.
You know.
Well, I mean, I know these conversations can go on and on. I don't want to be long your time, but I mean, you're always welcome to come on back, and
Thank
I
you,
mean, maybe
sis.
we need to come on and talk about that kink thing you got going on. Let's see
I
what
would love to. I would
feel free
love
to come
to.
on
It's an
back.
important topic.
Yeah, I mean, we let's have these conversations at the end of the day. Again, like I said, I'm a strong advocate for people, taking the time studying for themselves and things of that nature. I mean, yeah, going to the church is good, hearing a podcast, all that's great. But we can sit here and be telling us, anything, right? And so we
Mhm.
gotta do this due diligence and study for ourselves. Because at the end of the day, it's gonna be nobody else can stand up for you, and you can't blame anybody else, even though I'm sure we will try and say, oh, Chief Yuya told me,
Right.
or
Oh yeah.
Purple told me, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Absolutely.
no, but everybody has access, like you said today. I mean, it's in the age of communication and things of that nature. So speaking of that, man, you want to tell the people how they can get in touch with you and
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, of course, my handle is at Chief Yuya everywhere. You'll find me, music, books. I've published, I think, with 9 books, somewhere around there. On family, dysfunctional family, and healing from that.
mm,
On spirituality. On the lost black men. It's a book by the name of Noir Mel, and
mm,
different subjects to kind of again get us into a more balanced space. As for my ministry, Anu Life Global Ministries. You can always go to our website, Anu Life. That's ANULIFEGLOBAL.org, AnuLifeGlobal.org. And we have a lot of information up there if you want to be a part of the ministry, you want to join the ministry, or if you want to support or just learn stuff. We got free stuff up there too, so you can grab the free stuff because we in a recession. So get all the free stuff you can. So
mm.
yeah, those are ways that you can. And Anu Life on our handle on social media is Anu Life GM, ANULIFEGM. And you can follow along and keep abreast of what's happening. Yeah,
All righty. Well, I appreciate you and your time. Like I said, you're welcome
for
back.
sure. Thank you,
And
sister.
thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. This was beautiful. Thank you so very much. And let me just ask you this on my way out. Is there anything that you need from me?
Oh, I mean, I guess look, just prayers that I keep on, going the way that God wants me to go and things of that nature. And um, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Just,
I could
I
do
just
that.
want to stay on the right path, man.
Okay, absolutely, I could do that. All right, my sister. Thank you so much.
Wishing I would have a one night affair.
Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Chief Yuya for joining us tonight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and check out the Chief and the rest of his endeavors. Have a good night.